Hi, random Scottish history patrons, and welcome to a Friday show and tell. Possibly the last, actually. I didn't want to end on 11. 11 seemed like an odd number to end on. And I didn't get around to doing one last week because the entire house was in chaos last week. So we're a week late, and I feel like this will be the last show and tell for the time being, anyway. I thought we'd discuss bookbinding and the preservation of old books. What I come to find when buying old books. Obviously, we don't have like much of a budget, so I'm looking for the as original as possible. A publication of whatever it is that I've been set on the path for, but as cheap as possible. So the books I tend to end up obtaining can have fairly destroyed covers, but what you'll find is, although the covers are a mess and falling apart and literally leaving detritus the moment you open them, the text and illustrations and pages tend to be okay. They tend to stand up, so it's worth conserving these books, preserving them by getting them to a bookbinder's so that a decent cover can be put on them. Or maybe some of the cover is okay, maybe the front and back boards are okay, but the spine is destroyed. That's completely fixable. So, we've had a few books rebound, but I'll just show you a couple of them, a couple of examples, and one that ties in with the popular tales that we're looking to get done, and Alex is in the process of doing pictures for. So, firstly, we have Select Views. Okay. Select Views in the River Clyde was one of the very first books that I ever obtained, and I knew I wasn't going to want to get rid of it, so I didn't feel under any pressure to retain the original look of the book because I wasn't giving it up. So I decided it was my book now. So I had it done purple and black and with gold foil for the lettering. The girl that did this for me over at Cameron's in Glasgow, she enjoyed this as a project, and I think she quite enjoyed having a wee flick through the pictures as well as she was doing it. So this was one of the first books uploaded to the site, one of the first books uploaded to the original Random Scottish History Facebook page, before the site was ever thought of, and he's done an excellent job of this. It's very tight binding, it's wonderful. Nice and black, and so I love it. This is one of my favourite books. So that can be seen as maybe a wee bit selfish because I had it done how I wanted it. I didn't have it done how it was originally meant to look. I didn't even attempt to retain the look of the thing for any future buyer that might be interested in it. But what we had in the front of it was a Mr. Smith of Stonewalls, I think, saying that he'd purchased this for £4. So I've added to the provenance saying rebound by Cameron Bookbinders at 103 Commerce Street, Glasgow, on the 9th of October 2015. So I thought, well, a future buyer might not be overly enamoured about how it looks, the fact that it's not in its original cover. The original cover wasn't worth anything, it was fairly gone. I don't think the front board was even still attached to the book, as far as I remember. But I have included a provenance and the date that it was changed. I felt that made up for it a wee bit. So the second book I'll show you. This is an example of a publication where the boards were actually okay, and really it was just the spines of them that needed rebinding. The original seller had wanted a fairly large amount of money for these books, and I countered them on eBay, just saying, like, look at the state of those spines. Like, for the amount it's going to cost me to have them rebound, I'm not paying what you're asking, but I will pay blah. And I got them for like a third of the price they were asking for. I think I paid a tenner for each book. It was a 3-part series, parts 1 to 3, of 1001 Nights. This is I think the first English translation of 1001 Arabian Nights, by Lane. Edward Lane, I think. Yeah, Edward William Lane. So it's the 1001 Nights, commonly called the Arabian Nights Entertainments. So, the reason that I went looking for these in the first place was because in John F. Campbell's Gaelic Popular Tales, he has a really substantial introduction to his series of books, where he cites other collections of tales like Straparola and even just Grimm's fairy tales, Anderson's collection, because he felt that the world's popular tales were all connected in some way, that they all had, or the majority of them had a common origin, and that the stories had travelled with the people as they had peopled the world, and they had just evolved with the language and geographical location where people found themselves. So it's a really interesting introduction from John F. Campbell on the etymology of popular tales. That's already uploaded to the site. I'll include a link. So I obtained this because I wanted to read other similar stories. He felt like there were a few Gaelic tales that were related to Sanskrit tales, and in fact he felt that there were Gaelic words that were very similar and had the same meanings as words in Sanskrit. So he felt like that was evidence, a piece of evidence showing the origin of the peoples and the origin of the stories and of language and what have you. So I wanted to read them in advance of doing the Gaelic Tales. I wanted to get proper foundation and knowledge of stories that they potentially came from. So to that end I obtained these. The spines, like I say, were absolutely destroyed, but as you can see, Cameron did a fantastic job putting these together again. He gave me new spines for them. I had to source an image of what the spine had looked like, so I found them online, sent them to him in an email, and he made a die, a metal press die for the spine, which he said I could keep because it cost a wee bit to do them anyway, and he felt like it would be a nice memento. So, you see, it's a nice thing to have, this metal press, metal die. So, the one story that I will mention to you from volume 2 of Lane's 1001 Nights is the story of Aladdin. Now, you'll see that it's an original spelling, an original form of Aladdin. So it's Ala-ed-Din Abush Shamat is his name in this. And you can see where the Disneyfied version has come from. You can see the elements that have gone to make up the story. It's quite a different story in the Disneyfied modern tellings of it. In this original, he was born in Cairo, son to the Shah of merchants, but he's concerned that his son's going to be influenced by evil eyes and people, so he hides him in the cellar under a trapdoor. That's where he grows up. That's where Aladdin grows up. The door's left open by one of the eunuchs one day, and so he escapes, and his mum's basically like, he's out now. It's too late. Screw it, you know. So he comes into contact. A party is prepared for him to announce him, you know, because no one knew that this Shah of merchants had a son. He had to be introduced to people to give him legitimacy. So he meets some of the boys and of the other traders, and they're like, "You've not travelled, you've not been anywhere. What kind of merchant are you? You know, you've got to prove yourself." So Aladdin's like, "Oh, Dad, I've got to go to Baghdad. The boys are saying that Baghdad's a place to go to prove myself." So his dad's like, "Right, okay," packs him up a load, sends him off with some slaves and what have you. Halfway there, or they're just about there, I think they're like a day away from Baghdad, and Aladdin insists on being setting up camp, stopping the night. So bandits come, kill all his guys. He preserves himself by rolling in blood and being in his underwear and hiding amongst the dead bodies. So he saves himself, but all of his stuff's stolen and his men are dead. So he continues to Baghdad and gets help at the mosque that he comes across. But while there, it turns out that this woman, Zubayah, has been divorced by her husband, who didn't really mean to divorce her, but he said the divorce oath 3 times and she overheard it, and she's like, I hate you anyway, so screw it. So she's like, I'm not being married to you, and he regrets that. He's like, oh no, but I love you, I didn't mean to divorce you. And she's like, no, away you go. So it seems like she has to marry a foreigner who then has to divorce her the next day to be able to then be married again to her former husband. So Aladdin is the foreigner, but they're kept apart because people are like, if they see each other, I mean, they're both kind of good looking, they're going to like not want to divorce, so they're both lied to. But they meet and they decide, yeah, I'm not divorcing this guy, like, you know, like, I'm into this, you know, I've got myself Aladdin's like, I've got myself a wife and I'm getting fairly set up here, so, you know, I'm into it. So he has to come up with like 10,000 gold to be able to pay off the guy for not having divorced his daughter, and obviously all his stuff has been stolen. Merchants come by, they want to hear music. This travelling group want to hear her play the lute. So they come in and they leave 100 gold under their prayer mat every time they leave. They do this for a week. And then it turns out that it's the Caliph is one of the travellers. The Caliph is the king of the area, the emperor or monarch of Baghdad region, or, you know. So he arranges it so that at the end of the week, Aladdin gets all the stuff that he got stolen back, basically. He funds that. And so Aladdin's properly set up. He can pay the 10,000 gold he's set up. He's now courtier because he's right in there with the Khalifa. And he comes home and Zubaya, she's found dead. They bury her. So he's in mourning. The Khalifa's not into that. He wants Aladdin back at court. Offers him one of his slave girls. Aladdin's not into that. He misses his wife. But Aladdin finds himself a new slave girl at market, who he likes the look of. But he buys her out from under somebody else who's also set on getting her. And this slave girl's name is Yasemin, or Jasmine. So she didn't start out as a princess, she started out as a slave in this original telling. And she's his second wife. As he marries her, she becomes a lady. So, but the guy that he bought her out from under, he's not into that. And his ma isn't into that. So they wangle it so that this master thief, Ahmad Kamakim, I think his name was, is released from his bonds, from his jail. And he goes and he steals the Khalifa's stuff, including a lamp, and he hides the stuff in Aladdin's house. Aladdin's fine with it. Oh, denounced. Jasmine is now back to being a slave again for somebody else, and Aladdin is sentenced to be hanged. But he's swapped out. He's swapped out by Ahmad Eldenef. So he's some kind of courtier. I think he's in there with the Khalifa too, but he's not believing that Aladdin had anything to do with this. So he swaps him out with another guy and takes him off to Alexandria and sets him up in a shop in Alexandria. And while he's over there, Jasmine has had his kid, a son called Aslan, back in Baghdad. And Aslan grows up and is into getting revenge for his dad, Aladdin. So he turns detective and finds that Ahmad Kamakim, the thief, still has the lamp in his possession. So he saves the Khalifa during they say that they're hitting the balls about with golf sticks, but you can see in the illustration they're on horses and it's more like polo. So an assassin's in one of the teams and he tries to strike the ball at the Khalifa's head, and Aslan, Aladdin's son, gets in there and saves the Khalifa. So Khalifa's like, oh, what can I do for you? Oh, well, you could pardon my dad because that thief over there, that guy, he's got your lamp, so it was him that did it originally. It wasn't Aladdin. Right, well, I had pardoned your dad, but, we killed him, so, he's not dead. He's in Alexandria, isn't he? He's sold off all of his shop in the meantime. And he's just got this large black bead remaining. And a merchant comes, offers him a huge sum of money for this bead. And he's like, yeah, you can have it for that. No bother. The guy's like, well, I don't have it on me. You're going to have to come to my ship to get it. So Aladdin's like, fine, whatever. Goes to the ship and is kidnapped by this merchant. He's taken off to Genoa. And he's saved from execution in Genoa and made to work in a Christian church. And the princess Hosn Mariam pays a visit to this church, and with her she has a lady in waiting who happens to be his first wife. So Zubaya, his first wife, is reunited with Aladdin. Hosn Mariam, the princess, she's like an enchantress. She can see the future. So she knew that this meeting was going to take place, and she tells Aladdin that she's his third wife, and he's like, yeah, I'm into it. Screw it. He marries her. So he's got his first and his third wife. They kill the Christian king because he wouldn't convert. And then she uses the bead. The bead means that they can fly on a sofa to get back to Alexandria, and it gives them food and protection, defence, en route back to Alexandria. And while he's there, the Ahmad Eldenef, comes to tell him, by the way, you've been pardoned. Your son is like, he's got revenge for you. He's avenged your, your crime and blah blah. You've been pardoned. You never did it. They know it now. So he's like, that's brilliant. So I'll not go back just yet. I'll go to Cairo first and pick up the parents. So him and his first and third wife go and pick up the parents and head back to Baghdad, where he's reunited with Jasmine, wife number 2, and his now 20-year-old son, Aslan. And they lived happily ever after. So you can see where the elements for our modern version come from, but it's quite a different story to the original. And that's why we like the Gaelic tales, because you can see where the elements of your Cinderellas and Sleeping Beauties and things all come from. And they weren't the nice, tidy, blood and gore-free stories that children get now from Disney. Quite different. So I thought that we would talk Aladdin and bookbinding in today's show, and I've done that. I don't know that we'll be back again for a while. This is the 12th show and tell, and I quite like that as a number. 12 is a good number. And I hope you've enjoyed the rest of the videos. I hope you've enjoyed the wee series. It's been fun to do, and I appreciate you coming by to watch and hear me out about various. So until next time, you could join your sister. Hey, you too could be a sleeping kitty. No, is that not your style, Fargo? Hey, going to say hello to the peoples? Hey?